Imagine a high-stakes jewelry heist.
Right.
Right. But it's solved by, like, a primate sting operation.
Yeah, or a hostage negotiation that goes so incredibly wrong it triggers this massive 1,000-person bloodbath.
Exactly. Or a son accidentally assassinating his own father while just trying to swat a bug. You'd think we were dissecting the plot of some gritty, modern, psychological thriller.
You really would. It's a profound realization when you actually dive into these texts. We have this modern arrogance, I think, that behavioral economics and complex psychology were just invented in the last 50 years.
Right, like we just figured it all out.
Exactly. But these ancient stories prove that the mechanics of the human mind, they really haven't changed at all.
Welcome to today's deep dive. Our mission today is to explore a fascinating stack of excerpts from the Jataka Tales. And for those who aren't familiar, these are ancient fables detailing the past lives of the Buddha.
But we aren't approaching these as religious dogma today, right?
No, definitely not. We are unpacking them as an absolute masterclass in human psychology, cooperation, and problem solving.
Because the real beauty of the Jataka Tales is their pragmatism. I mean, they use animal fables and human past lives, not to just preach abstract morality, but to demonstrate the literal mechanics of society.
Yeah, they explain why systems fail, why people act irrationally, and how true wisdom operates in the real world.
So let's jump right into the first text you brought, the Samudamana Jataka, because this one, it perfectly illustrates how a functional system collapses.
It really does. So the setup is this. There is a massive flock of quails living in a forest, and they are facing a systemic existential threat.
Basically a highly organized predator.
Right. A fowler is just decimating their population. He imitates their calls, draws thousands of them together, throws this huge net over them, and just hauls them off to market.
It is a perfectly efficient harvesting operation. I mean, the quails are completely outmatched individually.
They really are. So the leader of the quails, who's the Bodhisattva, the future Buddha, in a past life, he realizes they need a systemic defense.
A collective response.
Exactly. He tells the flock, next time the net falls, do not panic. Every single one of you needs to poke your head through a mesh hole in the net. Then, on my signal, we all fly up in unison.
Which is brilliant.
Right. He says, we carry the net over to a thorn bush, drop it so it gets tangled in the thorns, and then we drop down and escape out the bottom.
Notice the brilliance of this strategy, though. He doesn't tell them to fight the fowler. He doesn't tell them to scatter.
He leverages their only advantage.
Yeah, their numbers. He uses that to distribute the weight of the threat. It's the ultimate example of collective action overcoming an overwhelming external force.
And it works perfectly. Day after day, the fowler comes back empty-handed. His wife even starts accusing him of secretly having a second family because he's not bringing home any money.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, if this were an ordinary fable, this is the end. Teamwork makes the dream work. Everyone goes home happy.
But these texts are far too realistic to stop at happily ever after. They understand that external threats rarely destroy a well-organized community. What destroys a community is internal friction.
Which brings us to the very dark sequel to this story. Sometime later, the flock is on the ground feeding. It's crowded. And one quail accidentally steps on the head of another quail.
Just a completely unintentional slight, a
Yes.
microscopic point of friction.
But the reaction is explosive. The quail whose head was stepped on gets absolutely furious. The first one apologizes, says it was just an accident, but the ego has already taken over.
They start screaming at each other.
Exactly. And it quickly devolves into an argument about their collective action. They start taunting each other, saying, oh, I suppose you think you lift the net all by yourself. You think we're all just riding your coattails.
This is a textbook example of the free rider problem mutating into a status conflict. Because in any collective effort, there's this underlying anxiety about who is doing the most work and who is getting the credit.
Right.
To a highly social creature, a loss of status feels like a survival threat.
Even when there's an actual literal survival threat right next to them, because the fowler hears them bickering, he walks up, throws his net over them, and nothing happens.
Nobody flies.
Nobody flies. They just sit under the net, arguing, you lift it. No, I'm not lifting it for you. You lift it. And the fowler just scoops them all up and takes them to market. It's devastating.
It is. The immediate physical threat of the net is totally superseded by the perceived social threat of being disrespected. And if we look at another story from your sources, the Rukkahama Jataka, we see this exact dynamic explained through a different lens.
Oh, the one with the trees.
Yeah, the Buddha is speaking to his kinsmen who are caught in this bitter feud, and he uses the analogy of a forest. He notes that when a violent storm hits a dense forest, the trees survive. Why? Because their roots and branches are interlocked.
They share the structural load.
Exactly. The tempest bends them, but it cannot break them.
But then he points out the solitary giant tree standing alone in an open courtyard.
Right. It could be the oldest, thickest, most majestic tree in existence. But because it stands alone, with no network to absorb the kinetic energy of the wind, the storm catches it full force and uproots it entirely.
This is such a critical takeaway for you listening to this right now. Think about the teams you're on or the community you live in. You can survive almost any massive external crisis, a market crash, a competitor, a literal storm, as long as the branches stay interlocked.
The unity absorbs this shock.
Yeah, but the second you let trivial slights and individual egos sever those interlocking branches, you do the predator's work for them. You sit under the net and argue while you get scooped up.
It's a profound vulnerability in human nature.
Okay, so ego and internal friction will destroy a group. But let's play devil's advocate for a second. What if a group has zero ego?
Like they're perfectly unified.
Right. What if everyone is totally united, completely devoted to the collective, and desperately trying to help each other, but they are just uniformly wrong in their approach?
Well, then you run into an entirely different kind of disaster. Because if the first lesson is about the fragility of cooperation, the second is about the absolute devastation of misguided effort.
Oh, man.
Sometimes the cure is infinitely worse than the disease.
Let's talk about the Mikasa Jataka, because this story is shockingly brutal, but also darkly hilarious.
It really is.
There is a bald carpenter, and his head is described as shining like a copper bowl. He is hard at work planting some wood, and a mosquito lands right on his bare scalp and bites him.
And his son is sitting right next to him.
Right. And the son loves his dad. He wants to help.
His motivation is pure. There's no ego here. He perceives a threat to his father, and he just wants to neutralize it.
But the son is not particularly bright. He grabs a massive razor-sharp axe, yells, "I'll kill it!" and swings with all his might at the mosquito sitting on his father's head.
Oh, no.
And, predictably, he splits his father's skull right down the middle, killing him instantly.
The Jataka text provides a very explicit analysis of this moment. It says, sense-lacking friends are worse than foes with sense.
I couldn't agree more, but why is that the case from a behavioral standpoint? Why is the foolish friend worse?
Because of asymmetric risk. Look, a smart enemy is a known variable. You know their intent is hostile, so your defenses are up. You build walls, you stay vigilant.
Right, you're prepared.
Exactly. But a foolish ally, they bypass all your security protocols because you trust them. You let them stand right behind you with an axe.
That is terrifying.
Good intentions paired with ignorance carry the highest potential for catastrophic damage because they operate inside your defensive perimeter.
Okay, I see that. But swinging an axe at a bug is a very localized, personal disaster. How does this concept of misguided, overpowered effort apply to a wider systemic level?
For that, we turn to the Vedaba Jataka. This scales the exact same problem up to the level of societal collapse.
Yeah.
We have a Brahmin who possesses a highly specific, dangerous magical charm.
Okay.
If he recites this charm, while looking at a very specific astrological alignment, it causes gold, silver, rubies, and diamonds to literally rain down from the sky.
Which sounds amazing. But the Brahmin is traveling through a dangerous forest with his pupil, our Bodhisattva, again. And they get ambushed by a notorious band of 500 robbers.
The robbers take the Brahmin hostage and send the pupil back to the city to fetch a ransom.
Now, before the pupil leaves, he gives the Brahmin a strict, desperate warning. He knows the astrological alignment is happening that very night.
Right.
He tells his master, "Do not use the charm. I will bring the ransom. If you call down the treasure to buy your freedom tonight, it will bring calamity and death to everyone."
But the Brahmin doesn't listen. He's tied up, he's uncomfortable, and he's terrified. He thinks, I have the power to instantly solve this problem by making it rain diamonds. Why on earth should I sit here and suffer?
So the second the stars align, he recites the charm.
Yep.
The sky opens up and a mountain of treasure falls into the forest. The robbers are ecstatic. They let the Brahmin go. They load up the loot and they start marching away.
And this is where the cascading failure begins. The Brahmin treated a complex ecosystem like a simple transaction. He used a massive, overpowered intervention to solve a temporary discomfort.
And the blowback is immediate. The first group of 500 robbers, who are now weighed down with tons of gold, are ambushed by a second group of 500 robbers.
Chaos.
Total chaos. The first group gets completely slaughtered, but the violence doesn't end there.
No, because the mechanism of destruction has been unleashed. When you suddenly introduce infinite unearned resources into a high-tension, zero-trust environment, the existing social order instantly disintegrates.
Wow.
There are no rules for allocating this magical wealth, so violence becomes the only arbitration tool.
It's a total bloodbath. The second group of robbers turns on each other. The text says the numbers dwindle down and down, 250, 150, until literally only 2 men are left standing out of 1,000.
2 men surrounded by a forest of corpses and infinite wealth.
They manage to hide the treasure. One guy stays to guard it. The other goes to a nearby village to get rice because they're starving.
But the paranoia and greed are total at this point.
Totally. The guy getting the rice poisons it, thinking, I'll kill him and keep the treasure. The guy guarding the treasure thinks, I'll murder him the second he walks back and keep it all.
The outcome is mathematically inevitable here. The first man returns. The second man murders him on the spot. Exhausted and hungry, the murderer then eats the poisoned rice and dies right next to the treasure.
That is incredibly bleak.
Every single person who interacted with this misguided intervention, including the Brahmin, who eventually gets killed too, ends up dead.
Think about this as an analogy for how we operate today. The Brahmin is like a tech company, deploying an untested, massively disruptive AI into society to solve a localized problem.
That's a great point.
Or a financial institution introducing a complex derivative that nobody understands. You deploy this massive intervention without understanding the secondary and tertiary effects. You get your immediate result, the ransom is paid, but you trigger a total system collapse.
It's exactly the mosquito and the axe, but the axe is being dropped from orbit.
Yeah, it is a perfect parallel.
The people, returning with the ransom only to find a massacre, explicitly states the moral. Those who seek their own gain by misguided means reap ruin. Impatience combined with immense power is the most fatal combination in human history.
It feels like in both of these scenarios, the son with the axe and the Brahmin with the magic charm, the fatal flaw is brute force and impatience.
Definitely.
When we panic, we reach for the biggest hammer we can find. It makes me wonder if there's a way to solve a high-stakes, high-pressure crisis without just swinging a bigger axe.
There absolutely is, and it brings us to our final text, the Mahasara Jataka, or the story of the stolen jewel. This story is essentially a blueprint for conflict resolution that doesn't rely on force.
Okay, here is the setup for the mystery. The king is in his royal gardens, and his wives are bathing in the royal tank. They take off all their jewelry and leave it in boxes guarded by their attendants.
Right.
But when they finish bathing, a priceless pearl necklace is missing. It has completely vanished.
And the king's reaction is exactly what we just discussed, brute force and impatience. He orders his guards to apply maximum pressure to the palace grounds to find the thief.
The guards go into a frenzy. They are terrified of the king, so they start terrorizing everyone else. A poor peasant happens to be running away from the gardens literally just because the guards are scaring him, so they tackle him, beat him, and demand the pearls.
Now, analyze the peasant's psychological state. He is under intense blind pressure. He realizes that if he denies the theft, the guards will just keep beating him, possibly to death.
Right, he's trapped.
So he calculates that a future execution is marginally better than current agony. He falsely confesses. He says, I stole it.
But then the king asks him, where is the necklace? The peasant obviously doesn't have it, so he invents a lie to buy time. He says, I gave it to the treasurer.
Oh boy.
So the guards arrest the treasurer. The treasurer realizes what's happening and thinks, well, I better play the same game to survive. He falsely confesses and says, I gave it to the musician. The musician gets arrested, confesses, and says, I gave it to the courtesan.
This is the ultimate danger of relying on force to solve complex problems. Force doesn't uncover the truth. It just generates a tangled web of desperate lies.
That makes so much sense.
When you apply overwhelming pressure, whether that's physical torture in an ancient kingdom or, toxic authoritarian management in a modern corporation, people stop trying to solve the problem and start trying to survive the pressure.
They just tell you what you want to hear.
They will give you whatever false signals you demand just to make the pain stop.
So, enter the wise counselor, our Bodhisattva. He looks at this absolute circus of false confessions and immediately deduces that all these humans are innocent.
He sees right through it.
He notices the trees around the bathing tank are full of monkeys, and he figures a female monkey probably swooped down and took the shiny pearls. But I'm trying to picture how he solves this. Does he interrogate the guards? Does he lay out a trap with a bunch of other jewelry and wait in the bushes with a net?
No, because more force or direct confrontation won't work on the monkeys either. You cannot torture a monkey into returning a necklace.
Fair point.
The wise counselor realizes he needs to change his approach entirely. He needs a behavioral sting operation. He doesn't chase the monkeys. He alters their environment.
This is the part that is just brilliant. He has his men capture a few random monkeys from the gardens. He adorns them with cheap, fake bead necklaces. And then he just turns them loose back into the trees and has his men hide and watch.
He is leveraging his deep understanding of primate psychology. Specifically, he understands vanity and status competition.
Yes, because up in the trees, the guilty monkey who has the real pearl necklace hidden away is watching. She sees these other monkeys strutting around, flaunting their cheap beads, getting all this attention from the troop, and her jealousy just boils over. She cannot tolerate the loss of status.
It's too much for her.
She literally screams at them, "They're only beads!" And she pulls out the real priceless pearl necklace and puts it on to prove her absolute dominance.
And just like that, the truth reveals itself. The guards see the monkey with the necklace, they retrieve it, and the innocent human prisoners are pardoned and freed.
That is incredible. So, when you are faced with a complex, tangled mess of a problem at work or in your personal life, what is the takeaway here? Applying blind pressure, just squeezing people for answers, only creates an environment where everyone lies to survive.
Exactly. True wisdom is not about applying more force. True wisdom is understanding the incentives at play. It is about understanding human or animal nature and designing an environment where the truth naturally and inevitably reveals itself. The counselor didn't find the necklace. He created the conditions for the monkey to reveal it. He aligned the solution with the natural behavior of the system.
Which is such a profound shift in perspective. Over the course of this deep dive, we've gone from seeing the absolute fragility of collective action in the Quail story to the total devastation of the misguided acts and the impatient treasure charm to the elegance of using behavioral psychology to solve a royal mystery.
It's quite a journey.
These aren't just quaint fables for children. They are practical blueprints for navigating reality.
They absolutely are. And I think there is a final reflection here for you to mull over as we wrap up. Throughout all of these texts, the wise figure, the Bodhisattva, appears in incredibly diverse forms.
A quail, a student, a counselor.
Right. What this tells us is that wisdom is not a title. It is not a rank you achieve. Wisdom is an active, ongoing state of paying attention to reality exactly as it is, rather than how we wish it to be.
It's about seeing the mechanics underneath the surface.
Exactly. So I would ask you to examine your own life today. Look at the challenges you are currently facing. Are you acting like the solitary tree, trying to brave a massive storm entirely alone out of pride?
Or perhaps worse, are you the sun trying to solve a mosquito-sized problem by swinging a massive axe?
Think very carefully about the tools you are reaching for today. Ask yourself if there is a wiser, quieter way to let the truth reveal itself.
Because at the end of the day, when you are standing in the middle of a complex, murky crisis in your own life, you don't want to be the one dropping an axe from orbit when what you really need is just a handful of cheap beads.